By the time Mira turned 21, she'd completed dozens of contracts under Corwin's supervision. Each one refined her skills further. Each one stripped away another layer of the person she'd once been. She and Corwin maintained a purely professional relationship. He taught, she learned. They lived in the same space but remained strangers. Sometimes, late at night, Mira wondered if he was lonely. Then she realized she didn't care enough to ask. The distance between them suited her. She didn't need a father figure or a friend. She needed a teacher, and Corwin was the best. But she was also growing restless. "You're ready for more complex work," Corwin said one evening. He looked older now, grayer, the lines around his eyes deeper. "But there's only so much I can teach you. The rest comes from experience." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you've outgrown me," Corwin said simply. "You're good, Mira. Better than I was at your age. But to become truly exceptional, you need to work independently." Mira felt a flicker of something, not quite emotion but close. Uncertainty, maybe. "You're dismissing me? I'm setting you free." Corwin poured himself a drink, his movements slow. "Take contracts on your own. Build your reputation. And when you're ready..." He paused. "Consider approaching the Assassin's Guild." "The Guild?" Mira had heard whispers of it, a shadowy organization of the best killers in the realm, bound by codes and oaths she didn't fully understand. "They're the pinnacle of our profession. Joining them isn't easy, but if anyone can do it, you can." Corwin raised his glass. "You've been a good student, Mira Underhill. Better than I deserved." It was the closest thing to sentiment he'd ever expressed, and Mira didn't know how to respond. "Thank you," she said finally. Corwin nodded, then turned away, staring into his drink. Mira left the next morning and never saw him again. Working independently suited Mira perfectly. She took contracts through intermediaries, never meeting her clients directly. The work was varied: corrupt officials, abusive merchants, rival gang members. Some jobs required stealth and precision. Others required bold daylight strikes. Mira adapted to each with the same cold efficiency Corwin had instilled in her. Her reputation grew, whispered in the right circles. The Halfling. Quiet, reliable, never fails. Money came easily now, though Mira cared little for wealth beyond what she needed to survive comfortably. But there was one contract she kept putting off. Before he died, a heart attack, sudden and merciless, just as Mira had turned 22, Corwin had left her a sealed letter. Inside was a name, an address, and a note in his precise handwriting. "This was meant to be my last contract. I won't be completing it. If you want to prove yourself worthy of the guild, do this. The client has been informed you'll make contact when ready." The target was Lord Heron Blackthorne, a minor nobleman who ruled a estate near Millhaven's western border. The contract detailed his crimes: inhumane treatment of prisoners, systematic abuse of his wife and children, extortion and murder to expand his holdings. It also noted that he kept sensitive documents in his study, documents the client wanted retrieved. This was no simple assassination. It was a test. Mira folded the letter and tucked it away. She'd complete it when she was ready. Not yet. But soon. 6 months after Corwin's death, Mira finally opened the letter again. She'd carried it with her through a dozen contracts, always aware of its weight in her pocket but never quite ready to act. It wasn't fear that held her back. Fear was a luxury she'd abandoned years ago. It was something closer to respect. This was Corwin's final lesson, delivered from beyond the grave. And Mira intended to pass it perfectly. Lord Heron Blackthorne's estate sat 3 days' ride west of Millhaven, a sprawling manor house surrounded by vineyards and tenant farms. The letter included minimal details, which meant Corwin had expected her to do her own reconnaissance. Another test. Mira spent a week in the nearby village, posing as a traveling halfling looking for seasonal work. People talked freely around her, a small, unassuming woman picking grapes or hauling water. They assumed she was harmless, invisible. They were wrong. Within days, Mira had learned everything she needed. Lord Blackthorne was a tyrant. His dungeons held prisoners who'd committed no crimes beyond failing to pay impossible taxes or speaking against his policies. Screams echoed from below the manor at night. The servants whispered about bodies dumped in unmarked graves. His wife, Lady Alara, wore long sleeves even in summer to hide bruises. His 2 children, a boy of 12 and a girl of 9, flinched whenever their father raised his voice. The village lived in fear of him, but fear alone wasn't enough to spark rebellion. Fear kept people compliant. Mira felt nothing as she compiled this information. Not anger at the injustice, not sympathy for the victims. Just cold calculation. Lord Blackthorn was a problem that needed solving, nothing more. The documents Corwin's client wanted were kept in Blackthorn's study on the 2nd floor. The room had 2 entrances, one from the main hallway, heavily trafficked by servants, and another through the adjoining library, which Blackthorn rarely used. The manor's security was laughable. Guards patrolled on a predictable schedule, and most were drunk by midnight. Blackthorn himself kept no personal bodyguard, secure in his belief that his title and reputation were protection enough. Arrogance. The same flaw that had killed Aldrich Van and a dozen others. Mira planned her approach with Corwin's methodical precision. She would enter through a servant's entrance after midnight, when the household slept. Move through the kitchens to the back stairs. Pick the lock on the library door. Retrieve the documents from the study. And then deal with Lord Blackthorn himself. Simple. Clean. Professional. The night before the contract, Mira sharpened her blades and reviewed every detail until she could walk through the manor in her mind with her eyes closed. She felt no anticipation, no nervousness. Just the quiet certainty that came with thorough preparation. Emotion will make you hesitate. If you hesitate in a life or death situation, you die. Corwin's voice echoed in her mind, as clear as if he stood beside her. She wouldn't hesitate. The manor was silent when Mira approached just after midnight. She moved through shadows like water, her dark clothing making her nearly invisible. The servants' entrance was locked, but that took her less than 20 seconds to remedy. Inside, the kitchen was dark and empty, the banked fire providing just enough light to navigate by. Mira paused, listening. Somewhere above, floorboards creaked. A guard making his rounds. She counted to 30, giving him time to move on, then slipped through the kitchen to the back stairs. The stairs didn't creak. She tested them during her reconnaissance, disguised as a servant delivering wine. She knew which boards were solid and which would give her away. She climbed quickly, her footsteps silent. The 2nd floor hallway stretched before her, lit by a single oil lamp. 2 doors down on the left was the library. Mira reached it without incident and knelt before the lock, her picks already in hand. This lock was better quality than the servant's entrance, but still no match for her skill. 40 seconds, and the door swung open silently. The library was smaller than she'd expected, lined with books that probably hadn't been read in years. Dust motes danced in the moonlight filtering through tall windows. The door to the study was directly across from her, and through it, she could hear the faint sound of snoring. Lord Blackthorn was in his study. Asleep at his desk, if the intelligence she'd gathered was accurate. He often worked late into the night, poring over ledgers and contracts, then passed out drunk in his chair. Mira crossed the library and tested the study door. Unlocked. Careless. She eased it open, inch by inch, until she could see inside. Lord Blackthorn sat slumped in a high-backed chair behind a massive oak desk, his head tilted back, mouth open. An empty wine bottle lay on its side, a pool of red staining the papers beneath it. He was a large man, running to fat now but still imposing. Even in sleep, his face held a cruel cast. The documents she needed would be in the desk or the safe behind the painting on the far wall. Mira moved into the room, keeping to the shadows, every sense alert. She checked the desk first, rifling through drawers with practiced efficiency. Most were filled with mundane correspondence and financial records. Nothing worth stealing. That left the safe. Mira crossed to the painting, a mediocre portrait of Blackthorn himself, because of course it was, and carefully lifted it from the wall. The safe behind it was quality work, but Corwin had taught her to crack safes years ago. She pressed her ear against the cold metal and began working the dial, listening for the subtle clicks that would reveal the combination. One tumbler fell into place. Then another. Then, "What are you doing in my study?" Mira spun, her hand moving to the knife at her belt. Lord Blackthorn stood beside his desk, no longer slumped in drunken sleep. His eyes were clear, his posture steady. Behind him, the wine bottle sat upright, not empty, but full. He'd been awake the entire time. "Clever little thing, aren't you?" Blackthorn said, his voice carrying that particular mixture of amusement and cruelty that came easily to men like him. "I've been expecting someone for weeks. Knew someone would come eventually. I've made too many enemies. But I expected a man, not a—" He gestured vaguely. "Whatever you are. A halfling girl playing at being dangerous." Mira said nothing. Her mind raced, recalculating. She'd been set up, or at least anticipated. Either way, the situation had changed. "Nothing to say?" Blackthorn smiled. "That's fine. I'll do the talking. You're here to kill me, don't bother denying it. And you want whatever's in that safe. Unfortunately for you, you're not getting either." He pulled a sword from behind the desk, a proper blade, well-maintained and sharp. His stance was practiced, confident. "I was a soldier before I was a lord," Blackthorn continued. "Fought in 3 campaigns, killed more men than you've probably met. I've let myself go soft in comfort, I'll admit, but I still know how to use this." He hefted the sword. "And you, little halfling, are about to learn that there's a price for breaking into my home." Mira drew her blade, a short, wicked thing designed for close work, and settled into the stance Corwin had drilled into her 1,000 times. Blackthorn laughed. "You can't be serious. Look at you. You're what, 3 feet tall? I could step on you." "Try it," Mira said quietly. His smile faltered, just for a moment. He'd expected fear, or at least hesitation. What he got was cold, flat certainty. Then he attacked. Blackthorn was fast for a man his size, and his sword cut the air with a whistle. But Mira was faster. She ducked under the first swing, rolled past the second, and came up inside his guard. Her knife scored a line across his thigh, not deep, but enough to draw blood. Blackthorn stumbled back, surprise flashing across his face. "Lucky," he growled, adjusting his grip. Mira didn't respond. She was already moving, circling to his left, forcing him to adjust his stance. Corwin's lessons echoed in her mind: never fight them on their terms. Bigger opponents have reach and power. You have speed and precision. Use it. Blackthorn swung again, this time with more caution. Mira parried with her blade, the impact jarring her arm, then immediately disengaged. She couldn't match his strength, so she wouldn't try. Instead, she targeted his weak points. A cut to his sword arm. A slash across his ribs. Another to his already injured thigh. Each strike was shallow, precise, designed to accumulate damage. Blackthorn's confidence was eroding. He pressed harder, swinging wildly now, trying to use his size and reach to overwhelm her. But each swing missed by inches, and each miss cost him energy. Blood soaked his shirt. His breathing was labored. He stumbled, catching himself on the desk. "Please," he said, the word coming out in a gasp. The arrogance was gone now, replaced by naked fear. "Please, I can pay you. Whatever they're paying, I'll double it. Triple it." Mira circled closer, her blade ready. "You're already dead. You just don't know it yet. I have children." Blackthorn's voice rose, desperate. "A wife. Please, you don't have to do this." For just a moment, Mira saw the faces of those children, the boy who flinched, the girl with hollow eyes. She thought of Lady Alara's bruises, hidden beneath long sleeves. She thought of the screams from the dungeon. She felt nothing. "You should have thought of them before you became the man you are," Mira said. Blackthorn tried one last desperate lunge, but his wounded leg gave out. He fell to his knees, sword clattering from his hand. "You're a monster," he gasped. She drove her blade up under his chin, angling it perfectly. Blackthorn's eyes went wide, then empty. He toppled forward, hitting the floor with a heavy thud. Mira cleaned her blade on his coat, exactly as she'd done after her first kill all those years ago. Then she returned to the safe and finished cracking it. Inside, she found the documents, ledgers detailing blackmail, extortion, and payments to assassins hired to eliminate Blackthorn's rivals. Evidence that would destroy what remained of his reputation and implicate several other nobles in his schemes. Exactly what Corwin's client had wanted. Mira tucked them into her pack, took one last look at Lord Blackthorn's body, and left the way she'd come. The client's intermediary met her in Millhaven 3 days later, in a tavern near the docks. He was an older man, nondescript, the kind who made a living facilitating transactions others didn't want traced. "The documents?" he asked. Mira slid the oilskin-wrapped package across the table. The intermediary opened it, scanned the contents, and nodded. "And Blackthorn?" "Dead." "Good." He produced a heavy purse and set it beside the package. "Your payment, with a bonus for the quality of the work. My client is very satisfied." Mira took the purse without counting it. "Tell your client that if they have future work, I'm available." "Actually," the intermediary said, lowering his voice, "my client asked me to pass along a message. They believe you're ready for the next step in your career. If you're interested in joining the Assassin's Guild, they can facilitate an introduction." Mira felt a flicker of something, not quite excitement, but close. Anticipation, maybe? The Guild. The pinnacle of her profession. Everything Corwin had trained her for. "I'm interested," she said. The intermediary smiled. "I thought you might be. They'll be in touch." He stood, leaving the documents and disappearing into the tavern crowd. Mira sat alone for a moment, staring at the purse. She thought of Corwin, of the years of training, of every kill that had brought her to this moment. "You've been a good student, Mira Underhill. Better than I deserved." "I passed your test," she said quietly to the empty air. Then she pocketed the purse and walked out into the Millhaven night, already thinking about what came next. The guild was waiting. And Mira Underhill was ready,